G'day everyone, welcome to Two Wheel Workshop. I'm Brody, and in this video I'm going to show you how to replace the fork seals on an RC390 without using any special tools. Alright, before I get into that, if you watched the last video in this series, which was the 7,500 kilometre service, you'll remember that I didn't check the headstock bearings for play. So while I've got the front wheel off the ground, I'll take 20 seconds to do that before I get into the fork seals. The first thing you're going to need to do is remove the fairings, and I'll link a video showing that process now. Once you've done that, you'll need to raise the bike so the front wheel's off the ground. If you're just replacing the fork seals, you can use a front triple stand, but because I'm checking the headstock bearings, I can't put any load on them. I don't have a special KTM work stand, and I'm not about to go out and buy one, so I've supported the bike underneath on this wooden ramp. I know it looks a bit dodgy, but it's actually pretty solid, and I'm using a ratchet strap as a safety tether to catch the bike if it falls. So if you're using a safety tether like me, make sure it has a bit of slack in it, then grab the front wheel and try and move it backwards and forwards. If you can hear a clunking sound coming from the headstock, or you can feel the forks rocking back and forth, you'll need to retension the headstock bearings. Mine are fine, so I won't be covering that in this video. The next thing you'll need to do is remove the front fender, and to do that you'll need a 5mm Allen key to remove the 6 socket head screws securing it to the lower fork legs. With a 10mm spanner, remove the bolt holding the ABS sensor to the lower fork leg, cut the cable tie and hang it to the side. With a 12mm spanner, remove the 2 bolts securing the brake caliper, rock the caliper side to side a little bit to push the brake pads apart, and then hang it to the side with a piece of wire. While the brake caliper is off, make sure you don't operate the brake lever because that'll cause all sorts of problems down the road. With a 13mm spanner, loosen the bolt in the end of the wheel spindle, and then with a 6mm Allen key, loosen the 2 socket head screws at the bottom of the right fork leg. Unscrew the bolt in the end of the wheel spindle about 6 turns and tap the spindle out of the axle clamp. Then you can completely remove the bolt, take out the wheel spindle and remove the front wheel. With a 22mm socket, loosen the fork caps about half a turn. With the 6mm Allen key, loosen the clamps on the triples and then remove the fork legs. Holding the fork leg over a suitable container, completely remove the fork cap and pour out whatever oil you can from the top. Hold the nut under the fork cap with a 19mm spanner and remove the cap with a 22mm socket. Now hold the fork assembly over the container and remove the outer tube from the inner, and the remaining oil will drain through a hole in the side of the inner tube. With a flat bladed screwdriver, carefully remove the dust boot from the bottom of the outer tube. With a small flat-bladed screwdriver, remove the lock ring. Now carefully lever out the fork seal with a screwdriver. As you can see, I'm using a rag to protect the edge of the fork tube so that I'm not levering directly against it. Now this is where I deviate from the procedure laid out in the factory manual. What they say to do is place the dust boot, lock ring and seal onto the inner fork tube, then place the outer fork tube over them and seat them using a special tool. I don't have that special tool, so I'm going to have to do it slightly differently. It still works, but you do have to be a bit more careful not to damage the seal. Make sure that you still have the support washer in the outer fork tube, and then press the new seal in as far as you can by hand. Then take a wide-faced punch and lightly tap the seal home, making sure that the punch is bearing on the outer portion of the seal only, so that you don't damage the sealing lips. Then replace the lock ring, making sure that it's fully engaged in its groove. Here you can see I'm using a screwdriver to make sure that it's snapped into place. Then replace the dust boot. Make sure the dust boot and seal have a good coat of oil, and then carefully slide the outer tube onto the inner tube. Turn the nut on the piston rod all the way down and then screw the fork cap all the way onto the piston rod. Wind the nut back up until it contacts the fork cap, hold it with a 19mm spanner and torque the cap to 30 Newton meters. Measure out 460ml of fork oil. The manual calls for SAE4, but I've got a whole heap of SAE5 lying around, so that's what I used. From what I've been told, a lot of guys who race these bikes use a heavier oil than specified anyway, so it should be fine. Hold the outer tube up and pour the oil into the fork. It's necessary to do up the cap and pump the fork a few times while doing this, as not all of the 460ml will fit in the outer tube at once. Do up the fork cap as far as you can by hand, and then replace the forks in the triple clamps, ensuring that the tops of the caps are flush or just slightly protruding above the top clamp. Torque the top and bottom clamps to 15 Newton meters, and then torque the fork caps to 30 Newton meters. Grease the shaft seal rings and insert the spacers, then lift the wheel into place and insert the wheel spindle. Install the bolt in the end of the spindle and then torque it to 26 Newton meters. Mount the brake caliper, apply Loctite 204 to the bolts and loosely install them. Squeeze the brake lever a few times and then lock it off with a cable tie. This will ensure that the brake caliper is aligned with the disc. Once you've done that, torque the bolts to 30 Newton meters. Mount the ABS sensor and torque to 8 Newton meters, and then reroute the cable and secure it with a cable tie. Tighten the spindle clamping bolts to 15 Newton meters. Alright, so that was replacing the fork seals on an RC390 without using special tools. It's been about a week since I finished the work and I've ridden, I don't know, 100k or so. And as you can see, there's no leaks. Thanks for making it all the way to the end, guys. I really appreciate it. I'd appreciate it even more if you'd like and subscribe. And that way you won't miss the next video in the RC390 maintenance series, which is going to be replacing the sprockets and chain. Thanks again, guys. Catch ya.